Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Denise Duffield. I'm the Associate Director of Physicians for Social Responsibility, Los Angeles, and I serve on the steering committee of the Back from the Brink Coalition. 2022 has been a momentous year in the fight to abolish nuclear weapons. Russia's war on Ukraine has killed tens of thousands, brought immeasurable suffering to the Ukrainian people, and taken us closer than ever to the brink of nuclear war. And despite more public attention to the issue than we've seen in decades, we've not seen any greater resolve among US decision makers to end the existential threat posed by nuclear weapons. Congress passed a National Defense Authorization Act that had even more funding for nuclear weapons than prior years. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference again saw no meaningful progress. And the Biden administration's nuclear posture review did not even renounce the option of using nuclear weapons first. But there was progress too. 2022 also brought the first meeting of state parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which included support and encouragement for actions and policies that reduce the threat of nuclear war in addition to nuclear abolition. 9 more countries ratified the treaty, bringing the total number of state parties to 68. And in the US, Back from the Brink's organizing efforts won support for nuclear abolition from more communities, more municipalities, more communities, and more elected officials throughout the country. And of course, we need to do more, much more, to build the kind of power that can get the attention of our federal representatives and pressure them to act. Back from the Brink is growing to become the coalition and the campaign that can do just that. So I'm very excited to share our accomplishments with you. And after that, we're going to go into breakout groups, which are one for local organizations and hubs. This breakout will be for folks who are already in a Back from the Brink hub or would like to start or join one. Hubs are groups of one or more person or organization organizing locally in support of Back from the Brink. Individual actions, this breakout will go over what you can do as an individual to advance nuclear abolition. Partnerships and organizations, this breakout is for those who represent a local or national organization or would like to involve an organization or recruit others to endorse and participate in Back from the Brink. Back from the Brink 101, this is for you if you're new to Back from the Brink and want to learn more about the coalition and the campaign. And after the breakouts, we'll join together again for reflection and a preview of upcoming events and actions in 2023. Next slide. Back from the Brink began a series of strategy conversations in the fall of 2021 that led to some big changes in 2022. To be more intentional and explicit about our core mission, we changed our tagline to bringing communities together to abolish nuclear weapons. And that really is our purpose, to empower people, to connect them in their own communities, and to continue building a truly diverse national movement of individuals, organizations, and elected officials working together to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons and who together possess real political power and the ability to exert political pressure. The next step was to create an organizational structure that reflected this true identity, and that meant becoming a coalition, running a campaign, of course, to abolish nuclear weapons. We developed a coalition model with different engagement options for individuals and organizations, and a way for folks to move up the ladder of engagement. Now, the first way that people generally engage with Back from the Brink is to endorse Back from the Brink. From there, organizations can deepen their involvement by becoming coalition partners. Coalition partners support the coalition and campaign through various means, such as communicating with supporters and other stakeholders about the campaign or the issue of nuclear weapons, making a financial contribution, attending coalition events and meetings, promoting the campaign on social media, or helping grow the coalition's relationships and partnerships with other organizations, influencers, and decision makers. Back from the Brink also established a distributed organizing model for local activism consisting of self-organized Back from the Brink hubs that are founded and organized by local Back from the Brink activists, volunteers, or allied groups. Hubs are meant to offer sustained local Back from the Brink activity and give any individual or activist a mechanism to act and invite others to join them and act. Hubs can serve as a home for folks to build relationships, connect with others, engage in public education and advocacy activities, and importantly, show up for other movements and causes in their communities and build relationships with them. Next slide. We currently have 13 coalition partners: Physicians for Social Responsibility, the Union of Concerned Scientists, PSRLA, United Church of Christ, Soka Gakkai International USA, Pax Christi, Chesapeake PSR, Daisy Alliance, New Hampshire Peace Action, PSR Maine, Syracuse Peace Council, Greater Boston PSR, and Western States Legal Foundation. Next slide. We currently have 10 hubs: Back from the Brink, New Hampshire, Greater Boston PSR, Chicago Area Peace Action, Ithaca Nuclear Disarmament Group, LA, Southern California, Mainers for Ending Nuclear Dangers, Prevent Nuclear War Maryland, San Francisco Bay Area, the Utah Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, and Western Mass Back from the Brink. Next slide. Back from the Brink has been endorsed by 425 national and local organizations to date. Highlights this year included an endorsement from the U.S. Episcopal Church and from leaders such as former Secretary of Defense William Perry, Princeton University's Frank von Hippel, the nation's publisher, Katrina vanden Heuvel, Reverend Liz Theo Harris, the national co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, and Archbishop John Wester of Santa Fe. To date, 73 resolutions supporting Back from the Brink's policy solutions have been adopted by local and state governments throughout the country. This year, we were thrilled to have Chicago come on board, the largest Midwestern city to do so, as well as resolutions in Frederick, Maryland, Holyoke, Massachusetts, Marshfield, Massachusetts, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Prince George's County, Maryland, the Rhode Island Senate, Salem, Oregon, and St. Paul, Minnesota. On the federal level, Representative Jim McGovern introduced HRES 1185, a resolution embracing the goals and provisions on the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which urges the United States to lead a global effort to prevent nuclear war by pursuing all 5 of Back from the Brink's recommended policies. And Representative Earl Blumenauer signed on as well as an original co-sponsor. We expect a new resolution to be introduced in the new Congress in early January, and we're working for a Senate companion bill as well. Next slide. I have a little bit of delay here on the slide showing up. There we go. Back from the Brink recognizes that nuclear weapons are a manifestation of a deeply unjust system in the US and worldwide, and that our efforts to eliminate nuclear weapons must therefore be part of a large, diverse, intersectional global movement for peace and justice and democracy. So last spring, we became a national mobilizing partner for the Poor People's Campaign June 18th Moral March on Washington, joining tens of thousands of people who are committed to dismantling the interlocking injustices of systemic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, the denial of healthcare, militarism, the war economy, the false moral narrative of religious nationalism, and the threat of nuclear war. And we were proud to play a leadership role in getting other peace and disarmament organizations to become mobilizing partners as well. We hosted a virtual meeting for the peace and disarmament community featuring Poor People's Campaign leaders, and that was instrumental to bringing other groups and individuals to the march. And as you can see by the photos, we had a great time. It was an incredibly inspiring experience to break out of our silo and find common cause and solidarity with so many other important movements. And we are committed to building upon this work and these partnerships in 2023 and beyond. Next slide. So Back from the Brink has been endorsed by 142 local and national faith groups, which really underscores that some of the strongest arguments against nuclear weapons are moral ones. It is morally wrong to possess, let alone threaten to use these weapons that are capable of ending life, all life on the planet. And it is deeply unjust to spend billions on these weapons instead of on programs that could bring true security, address climate change, provide healthcare, education, and help lift folks up out of poverty. So our moral institutions can and must do more to speak out about the urgent need to abolish nuclear weapons and to urge action among their faithful. In January, Archbishop Wester of Santa Fe released a widely acclaimed pastoral letter, Living in the Light of Christ's Peace, a conversation toward nuclear disarmament. And Back from the Brink was proud to join with Archbishop Wester in September to co-host a historic dialogue with senior leaders from numerous faiths on the existential threat that nuclear weapons pose to humanity and the planet. Back from the Brink also participated in our coalition partner Pax Christi's 50th anniversary conference in August. Pax Christi has been a stalwart supporter of Back from the Brink since our inception. And in communities across the country, Pax Christi activists have played major roles in helping get Back from the Brink resolutions passed and in helping grow the campaign. Next slide. Back from the Brink was also proud to be featured on a panel about revitalizing the grassroots movement for nuclear disarmament at the Arms Control Association's 50th anniversary conference. Also, Back from the Brink Steering Committee member, Dr. Ira Helfand, attended the first meeting of state parties to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons in Vienna. The meeting concluded with a strong political statement condemning the threats of nuclear war that have accompanied the Russian invasion of Ukraine and an action plan to guide participating nations over the coming 2 years as they work to universalize the treaty and pressure the nuclear armed nations to eliminate their arsenals. Next slide. So the 2022 midterm elections were historic for many reasons, not the least of which that democracy itself was on the ballot. In recent years, we've seen rising authoritarianism, voter suppression, deliberate efforts to sow distrust in the democratic process, and a violent attack on the US Capitol meant to subvert election results. The threat to democracy is real as the threat of nuclear war. And the reality is that it will be difficult, if not downright impossible, for any of us to have any hope of preventing nuclear war or abolishing nuclear weapons or impacting nuclear weapons policy if we don't have a representative democracy and if we aren't free to organize and advocate. So Back from the Brink responded to this crisis by joining numerous diverse groups and organizations that are working to defend, preserve, and strengthen US democracy. We began by hosting a virtual roundtable called Preventing Nuclear War Means Defending Democracy, which featured a panel of experts and pro-democracy advocates from the Union of Concerned Scientists, the Poor People's Campaign, the League of Conservation Voters Education Fund, and Georgia Women's Action for New Directions. And we had a vibrant discussion about why the future of our democracy and nuclear abolition are inextricably linked and what folks could do to get involved and make a difference leading up to the midterms. Back from the Brink then had a weekly series of action hours where we gathered together to take action on pro-democracy initiatives such as the Vote Forward Project or text banking with the Poor People's Campaign, and on preventing nuclear war by urging Congress members to co-sponsor HRES 1185 or writing letters to the editor. The midterms are now over, and while the threat to democracy remains an urgent concern, voter turnout was high in many places and most of the election-denying candidates were defeated. So it's clear that the collective efforts of so many groups, concerned groups and individuals made a difference. And Back from the Brink is proud to be, in our small way, part of that history. And I should add that the Poor People's Campaign is continuing its national text banks ahead of the December 6th runoff election in Georgia, so there's still opportunities to get involved. Next slide. And last slide. Okay, so now we're going to go into breakouts. Please choose from one of the following, which I'll go over once more. Each breakout is going to be facilitated by members of Back from the Brink Steering Committee. Number 1, local organizing hubs. This is for folks who are already in a Back from the Brink hub or would like to join or start one. This group will be facilitated by Jeremy Love and Peter Wilk. Number 2, individual actions. This is for folks looking to see what they can do as an individual to advance nuclear abolition. This group will be facilitated by Danny Hall and Ira Helfand. Number 3, partnerships and organizations. This is for you if you represent an organization or would like to involve an organization or recruit others to endorse and participate in Back from the Brink. This group will be facilitated by Sean Meyer and me. And number 4, Back from the Brink 101. This is for folks who are new to Back from the Brink and want to learn more about the coalition and campaign. This group will be facilitated by Madison Rose and Bob Dodge. So we're going to get started with the breakouts, and because of the varying ways users access the room, the process for accessing breakout groups might look a little different. You might see a pop-up right now from the Zoom menu alerting you that they're available. If you don't see a pop-up, you might see a new option on the Zoom menu titled Breakout Rooms, or if your screen size is small, it might be under More, and you need to click that More to get to the Breakout Rooms option. If you're on a cell phone, you should see a pop-up alerting you to the availability of the breakout rooms. Now, if you aren't able to get into a room or you're calling in from a phone, just stay where you are and Alex will help you get to the appropriate room. And we'll spend about 30 minutes in the breakout rooms, and then we'll join together again. So see you in a little bit, folks.
Welcome back. I'm going to give a few minutes here to make sure everybody has rejoined us from the various breakout rooms. In case you don't remember from the beginning, I'm Peter Wilk, Administrative Chair of Back from the Brink. It is wonderful that so many of you have joined us for this open house this evening and are still staying with us through this point in the evening. It's kind of getting later in the East Coast. I have to observe this has been a difficult time in many ways these last months, many challenges in the world. It is great to gather with so many of you and feel some positive energy and some encouragement for the work that we need to do going forward. There have been some great ideas shared, at least in our breakout session that I was part of. I expect that there were some good ideas shared in some of the other sessions, and we're going to hear about that in a moment. Jeremy, can you flip to the next slide? There we go. Actually, it's going to be one more after that. There we go. Okay, just one sec here. So this slide lists a variety of possible actions that one can take to support the Back from the Brink campaign. And you may already see some things on there that you've been involved with in the past, and perhaps some that you might be planning to do going forward. Of course, everyone can't take all of these actions, so don't feel you need to write them all down at this point. All of these slides, by the way, will be shared with you in an email that we're going to be sending out early next week. So you'll get this list at that point. You'll see at the bottom, there is, and you'll get this then, you don't have to write it down now. There's a link to a resources page, which will get you to many forms and educational materials and so on that might be of use to you as you try to embark on one or another of these actions. So we're going to shift gears in a moment, but while you're looking at this list, thinking about whatever was discussed in your breakout group, we'd like everyone to use the chat, which is now open again, to share one action or two that you plan to take locally in your area in 2023 to help grow our national movement in support of nuclear abolition. So if something has occurred to you already have a plan, you can state it briefly. We will be saving the chat, so this will be a way to help us stay in touch with you. And sort of make a little bit of a commitment to put something in writing. Maybe you'll be a little bit more likely to actually do it. So we now are going to shift while folks are doing that individually on the chat. We are going to hear back a little bit from the breakout session. So Jeremy, if you can turn that slide off and let's see, just spotlight all of us. Right, there you go. And so we're going to hear briefly from each of the breakout rooms, just one, we can't have a full summary of everything that was said, but one or two highlights, starting with Jeremy from the first local organizing breakout room.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, we had a really great discussion about Chicago area peace actions experience, as well as what had been going on in Maryland with the resolutions that they were able to get. I think one of the highlights of like the sort of like the coalescing of ideas was that, you know, that these different locations that we're working on doing advocacy work in are all at varying degrees of sort of levels of engagement on anti-nuclear weapons advocacy, and it necessitates a different approach for sort of each location, and that we shouldn't find sort of any difficulties that we run into, speed bumps or hindrances, too frustrating, because it's just a matter of sort of building out the community and making connections and finding the right people to ally with who can open those doors to start the conversations with a mayor or a city councilor. So I feel like that was kind of one of the highlights of our conversation.
Great, thanks, Jeremy. So Danny, you want to share something from the individual actions breakout?
Yeah, so we had a great breakout with people from all over the country, from LA to Nashville to Atlanta to Baltimore. And we used it as a working session, and people took concrete actions during our 30 minutes together to send their request to their representatives in Congress to co-sponsor House Resolution 1185. People took the time to actually endorse the campaign as individuals and fill out information about how they might want to get further involved in the campaign, so we can reach out to them after this meeting with ideas for how they can get connected. And we went over all sorts of other ways that are so important for individuals to take action, writing letters to the editor, encouraging your organizations and your elected officials to endorse Back from the Brink. And we also talked about the local organizers meetup on the third Tuesday of every month, and invited people to get involved with that if they'd like to further engage in the campaign. And people also seemed very passionate about spreading the the Back from the Brink message in many ways to other faith groups, to video game manufacturers, to and just getting involved locally with others collectively as a community. So it was a great discussion for all of us, I think.
Great, thanks, Danny. I like that idea about the video games. And I like seeing that the chat is filling up with various pledges of action. So keep inserting what you might be doing over the next year. Denise, want to report back from the partnerships breakout?
Yeah, we had a fantastic group, a whole wealth of experience and ideas in the room. We asked folks particularly to think about leaning into the intersectional organizing that is so critical for us to build real power and make real change. Some of the things that came up were the importance of relationships, particularly if you're working on a resolution. We also asked folks what they needed for us, and we got requests for speakers and for some organizing materials and for getting connected in different parts of the country. We also had folks talk about how important it is to have some sort of metrics to measure progress as you go through your efforts each year. Talked about a lunch and learn idea that concerned scientists had done, which did bring folks from different movements together. Living room dialogues that had happened in the freeze movement, could they start happening again? That also came up. And then we talked a little bit about some of the difficulty of whether we might face with the new Congress. And also folks looking for examples and for other communities that have successfully done intersectional organizing in their communities. And so lots of great ideas discussed. Again, fantastic collective experience in the room.
Great, thanks, Denise. Great to hear. And finally, Maddie, I'm not sure what you want to share from Back from the Brink 101 with this larger group, but we'd be glad to hear from you.
Yeah, we had a one-on-one session, got us all up to speed, but we also had time for a great conversation. We had folks, shout out to some Peace Action, Veterans for Peace, and UCS folks, among others who are on the call, both super new and who had already plugged in somewhat to the campaign. We talked a little bit big picture of how do we actually abolish nuclear weapons? Somebody asked that great question, and we took a little slice out of it. We talked a little bit about the golden rule. And then there were some folks who were from California, a few Bobs who might be connecting after this. So it was a great session. Thanks to all who were there.
Great, thanks, Madison. And I think in our session as well, the enormity of the challenge we face, we can't dodge that, right? I mean, we're making some great progress. We heard a lot from Denise about the number of resolutions we've secured, number of endorsing organizations, all of that. We're making progress, but to actually change the course of U.S. national nuclear policy, it's a heavy lift. We don't know when the tipping point will come. We just have to keep doing what we're doing and bring this local pressure to bear, and the tipping point will come, but we don't know when it is, and we got to keep pushing. So I'm going to throw in that bit of encouragement. Thanks everyone for your contributions. I want to note that if you're doing local organizing and you run into any challenges, contact Jeremy Love. You heard him speaking first, and he is the person who's at the center of Back from the Brink's outreach and organizing efforts, and he'd be glad to help you think through what are the constructive next steps that you can take in your local community. So thank you all for facilitating. I think we're going to go back to the slides. Jeremy, if you can do that as well, to upcoming events. All right. So upcoming events. Again, there's a list. You don't have to write them all down. You'll be getting this slideshow at the end of early next week. But did want to highlight a few things. The event coming up already this Sunday, December 4th, is really most relevant if you live in Western Massachusetts. It's going to be a reception and fundraiser, ought to be a lot of fun. In early January, we are hoping, we've gotten pretty much of a commitment from Congressman McGovern himself that there will be another version of HRES 1185 introduced, which will be supporting both TPNW and Back from the Brink policy solutions. So you'll be hearing more about it as soon as we have a more definite commitment, and we'll be certainly trying to get all of you to help us get more co-sponsors as soon as possible. There are two regular monthly gatherings that have been mentioned, but I'll mention them again. There's the monthly local organizing meetup, and you can register for it and go to the preventnuclearwar.org site if you need more information about it, or it'll come in the email next week. There's a social media collaboratory, which is for those folks who want to share ideas with regard to how to make better use of social media to get our message out and spread. Also in January 21st, will be the second anniversary of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Guns.
Third anniversary.
The third anniversary, the second anniversary of entering into force, I believe. I think.
That's correct.
Yeah. And there will be a lot more information coming out about the activities around that. There'll be some educational activities. Various organizations are involved, and Back from the Brink will certainly be as well. So that's a date to keep in mind. And finally, I wanted to do a special plug for this project that Veterans for Peace is doing. I'm not sure if Helen Jacquard has actually gotten on the call. She registered for it. She's with Veterans for Peace and is coordinating this effort. The Golden Rule is an old restored sailboat that was a peace ambassador sort of sailboat many years ago. It's been restored, and it's now making its way across the United States, advocating for peace and the elimination of nuclear weapons, including Back from the Brink's 5 policy changes. So check out their website to find out how you might be able to connect with it at some point. If your locality happens to be on their route, there's some great opportunities for joint advocacy. So, Jeremy, one more slide, please. Thanks. So, all of this work, of course, costs some money. A lot of it's done by many of us who are volunteering, but there are expenses, and we hope that you might feel good enough about the work that we're doing to donate. If you're able to, at any level, very much appreciated. You'll find details on our website. You'll get the slide in the pack when it's distributed next week, but we really appreciate whatever support you can give. And a final slide is going to have some contact information on it. So please stay in touch. You'll see at the top right, or general inquiries, go to info@preventnuclearwar.org, and that will enable, oh, there we go. Jeremy now is up top as well. So to email Jeremy directly about local organizing, you'll see his email address there. We're also on Facebook and Twitter as well, and there's our website address. It's been a great evening. Thank you all so much for spending this time with us, and we'll catch up another time, perhaps at the local organizing meetup. Take care, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Had a great
Thank
time. I
you.
learned a lot, and I'm
Good meeting.
Fired up.
Yep,
Onward.